Welcome to Career Tipper Podcast, hosted by Michelle Beatty. The Career Tipper Podcast is a motivational resource that shares career and entrepreneurial tips by industry experts that will help amazing people evolve to their professional best. And now your host, Michelle Beatty.
Episode 15 of the Career Tipper Podcast features Beth Hanson. Beth is an experienced human capital strategist that has worked in a variety of industries and organizational settings. She has designed, led, and implemented full cycle talent management solutions that embodies talent acquisition, assessment and selection, performance management, coaching, leadership development, learning, culture and engagement, data analytics, and succession planning over the past 15 years. Her other specialties include survey design, project management, change management, and competency modeling. Beth is certified as a DDI facilitator, DISC facilitator, and situational leadership. She is going to share insight and tips on how managers can adjust their leadership style to fit the development level of the different members of their teams. Beth, welcome to the Career Tipper Podcast.
Hello, Michelle, and thank you for having me today.
Oh, this is going to be a good interview because I think more people can benefit from what you're going to share in regards to situational leadership. I think there's going to be some awesome takeaways. But
very good.
Yes, but before we get into all of that wonderfulness, what has your journey been to becoming a human capital strategist?
Sure, of course. So let's start off with an easy one. So I can definitely say from a young age, I have always been absolutely fascinated with the mind and how it works. And I actually started my career in mental health and made the transition into business psychology to study employees in the workplace. So just as equally fun and interesting. And so today, really, my focus is on providing the right innovative thinking, tools, strategies, and practices to help organizations really be at their best.
I love it. Can you just share what situational leadership is? What's the definition? How do you feel people should perceive it? What is the foundation that you view people and managers and employees too should view situational leadership to be?
Sure. So, in its most simplest terms, it's a model for developing individuals to reach their highest level of performance on a specific task or goal. And so then it's taking the appropriate leadership style and matching it to the individual's development level on that goal or task. And so how do we provide the right amount of direction and the right amount of support for someone in the moment that they need?
Love it. Now, why should managers consider adjusting their managerial style to include situational leadership? Because, some are flexible and some people are like, I have this, I've been doing this forever. So why should they embrace something new?
I love that. So, I have over 15 years of experience and, anyone who has a little experience to a lot of experience, we can all develop bad habits and we can get very comfortable in the way that we do things or the way that we lead or manage our talent. And so I think this is a transformative way for leaders to lead and manage their own talent. And I have 4 takeaways that I think really help managers adjust and see that this could be a style that really fits for them. I think the first is that this model creates a common language between the leader and those that they lead, which is really helpful. The second one is that it increases the quality and the quantity of conversations that leaders have with their people that they lead or that they influence. And the third is that it helps others develop their self-reliant problem-solving skills, because ultimately we want people to be successful in being able to solve those problems and do things themselves. And then finally, I think really to bring it all home is it really enables others to develop their competence, which increases their confidence and their willingness to take on responsibility for decision-making.
I love it. I love it. Common language is so important in the workplace. And then also, I am a true advocate of self-leadership. You need to own your development with the support of your management. I think that is so essential.
Right.
Indeed. So I know, with that being said, what do you define as the rule of thumb that you encourage and think is the great shift that managers should keep in mind when identifying task behavior, through the leadership competencies like diagnose, adapt, communicate, and advance?
So I think there's a few things here. I think ultimately the leader should be able to demonstrate EQ or emotional intelligence. And so I think it really comes down to that. We're seeing this becoming more popular in the workplace, all about this emotional intelligence. And so how can leaders effectively use emotional intelligence to navigate and adjust through the conversation and be nimble through it? And so, when they're diagnosing or analyzing the readiness level of someone at a task or skill, how can they be nimble? How can they leverage their emotional intelligence to identify what that readiness level is? And for them to know that they need to adjust and sometimes continuously readjust their behavior and their communication style as the situation evolves and changes, but also as the individual gains more confidence or more competence in what they're doing. Fluid,
adaptable, flexibility is key.
Exactly.
Okay, that's my takeaway. So how have you seen the implementation and practice of situational leadership transform a team or a work environment, or even just maybe a couple of individuals that have developed, like you were saying, the confidence to drive change?
So, I'm going to start off first by saying, when leaders use this model, and I've seen this work really well in teams and departments that have committed to using the model. First, it takes the pressure off the managers to guess what the development level is of their people on a goal or task. And sometimes that can be really tricky to do, especially if someone is an introvert or not very expressive. We might think that they are, higher level skilled than what they might be, or someone who's really energetic. We might think that they have more competence than they really do. And then equally, it takes the pressure off the individual to feel like they always have to be an expert at everything they do. And so when I've seen this be really successful with these teams and departments, we're actually seeing, an increase in productivity. People feel like they want to do more. We see a lower turnover. So people genuinely feel like they have better relationships with their managers. They feel like there's more trust there, and they're less likely to leave the organization. And then also we see higher levels of self-confidence. People know where they stand. They feel like they have clarity. They feel like their leader is committed and invested in them. And then they want to equally be as invested. And that really also, I think, affects the team dynamics in a positive way as well.
It does, right? Because it's like a unified front, and there's no need to compete.
Exactly. Everyone's on the same team. They feel that they're on the same team, and everyone's in the boat rowing the same direction.
It's all about the same direction, right? It's like the shepherd leading the sheep, like everyone needs to go. I love it. Okay, Beth, I know that you're a consultant, and this is what you do, like human resources development. Like, it's very clear in interacting with you that this is a sincere passion work for you that you believe in and you promote. So is there an ideal time of when companies should bring you on to complete like situational leadership training? Because your arsenal is packed. So when should a company give you a call to say, okay, I'm ready for you?
Really any time is a good time. I think better late than never. But ultimately, I feel, when an organization wants to better build or enhance their leader capability, then call. And then really focus on upskilling those leaders to have one unified model, speaking the same language, and really kind of taking their entire leadership up to the next level. This is something that is available for leaders at all levels. It's not just for frontline leaders. It can benefit folks who have been doing leadership and coaching and developing other people for many years. It's definitely something that can be leveraged at any time.
I think that's great because, you never know. Sometimes a leader could feel like it's all hope is gone and what is this going to do to make a difference? But it could be that simple training. It's not simple. Your training is actually extremely detailed and intricate, but it could be that game changer.
It certainly can be. And I think it helps leaders that have been doing this for a really long time. It can help them to champion this for younger or newer leaders. But it also gives our more seasoned leaders the ability to stop and reflect and see if they've developed any bad habits or laziness in their leadership, which we all have probably at some point in our careers, to kind of refresh and reset their leadership style.
Indeed. Now, because I know you're a champion as a human capital strategist, and you definitely lead masses to embrace the different models and things of that nature as far as leadership, why should your peers in talent management consider being certified in situational leadership or any other developmental leadership, get that certification?
Sure. I think it's a really great tool to have in your repertoire. When you are in a role like I am, you'll have clients or stakeholders come to you and they're asking you to solve all different kinds of problems. And so it's just another tool that you can have that can be leveraged for leaders at all levels. And then, situational leadership has a supplemental course for the self, and it's a self-leadership. And so by having both of those, if you're certified in situational leadership, you can teach both courses, and you really can help the entire organization from the front line all the way up to senior leaders really be more effective in developing the capability of their people.
Well, thank you for that share. I hope it encourages a listener that could be in the same specific role or related role, and they might think twice about it. So I think that's awesome. Thank you.
Sure, certainly.
Now, Beth, is there a documentation process that you suggest managers consider when practicing situational leadership? Should they freestyle? Should they follow a process? Is there software you recommend? How do you think they should monitor their progress?
Sure. I say it's really about having conversations, but I know that there will be folks listening that say, I need structure. And so, if you go through the situational leadership training, there is an actual one-on-one agenda that can be used that the individual comes, they fill out ahead of time, they bring it to the one-on-one check-in, and they can self-diagnose, or the leader diagnoses where is the development level of this individual on each goal or task. And so you have that documented, but it's really then taking that and moving it into the conversation of, okay, so now what do we do? What support and direction can I provide you based on each goals and tasks? And you can bring that same, agenda cheat sheet, to every single one-on-one or whatever that looks like, maybe once a month or a quarterly check-in. To have that. And there is a diagnosis cheat sheet and mobile app that leaders can have once they go through the training. And that really helps them to diagnose and match their leadership style to the development level of someone at a task or a goal. And so those are really helpful. So you don't need to carry around a whole bunch of different, papers and things like that. But I would say those are probably the two biggest ones: the one-on-one agenda, the diagnosis cheat sheet, and then you can use the mobile app instead of the diagnosis cheat sheet. And then really just get in there and have the conversation.
Awesome. I thank you for that, because sometimes people can overthink implementing your process. So keeping it simple, and this is how you do it. Now, mindset, when you're starting something new, you're entering a training, you're becoming certified facilitator, your mindset is everything. Either you think you're going to master it or you don't, and therefore you create it to be your reality. So what do you do to keep yourself ready to simplify complexities that you encounter throughout the day? Because you are on it. You connect, you assess, and you encourage at the same time. So how do you manage that in your mind, that that when you leave a situation from consulting or training, you've helped people make that shift?
So certainly, I always say, the more complex, the bigger the problem, bring it to me. I have always loved why things work the way they do, and I've always enjoyed taking things apart, breaking them into smaller chunks. How do they fit together? And so I look at, the work that I do and the problems that I solve with my clients the same way. And so, at the end of each day, I reflect on what I've covered and what I would like to do differently the next morning, and how I can best serve the people that I work with. And so I take a step back. I look at the bigger picture of how can I take a large problem or challenge and shape it or reshape it in a way that seems manageable to solve for the people that I work with? How can I break this into smaller pieces and, attack or tackle each one of those pieces individually, and then taking a step back at the bigger picture to say, how does this fit in, and do we need to reshape and remold as necessary? And usually at the end of the day, the clients that I work with feel much more comfortable and calm, because it looks much more manageable to tackle. And I think even so, a little bit excited because it feels like there's something new that they can do with it.
I love it. Now, Beth, how do you keep yourself inspired? Because I know you're continually helping people and managers create sustainability in an ever-changing environment. I know that you're a runner, but beyond that, or in addition to that, how do you keep yourself inspired?
I love reading. I try to read anything and everything. I've just always loved reading, even at a really small age. It's always been something that I've loved. You said running as well, so I love running. But I think, ultimately keeping myself inspired is I am, in I guess a lack of a better word, I am always obsessed of thinking about endless possibilities and what could be. And so, I take this into my approach that I work with leaders and managers, and I really help give them the vision of what could be and what those endless possibilities could be. And so how do I keep them calm? How do I keep them focused on a few key things, because the environment is always changing and I do want them to feel like there's some sustainability, but how can I also help them look at it, this is an endless possibility. And even though our environment's always changing, technology is rapidly changing, the workplace is rapidly changing. It feels like we have so much more to do in so little time. But how can we look at this as something positive? And how can I reshape or remold or even create something new from this ever-changing environment that could be even better than before?
I love it. Endless possibilities. Yes, that's how you have to look at it. I absolutely love that, because sometimes people can just have this, Debbie Downer, or, it's just like, what's wrong? Why do you look at a situation that way? You don't have to think about it that way. It's not a death sentence.
You're right. It's certainly not. And how do we help, and me specifically, but anyone else on the line, how can you help build your resilient muscle? There's many changes that we all face and experience. And, sometimes a lot of really small changes or a lot of really small stressors can add up to be something big. And you may not feel like you want to, move forward. Or as you said, may feel like you're a Debbie Downer or you can't move in with this ever-changing environment. And so really building that resilient muscle. How can you bounce back after adversity? How can you grow through it, not just go through it? And how can you thrive and not just survive?
High five. High five. Beth, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate your time and the insight that you shared about situational leadership. Talent management solutions are continually evolving. Are there any books or resources that you suggest that complement situational leadership?
Yes. So there is a book out. I believe it just came out in 2017. It's called Self-Leadership and the 1-Minute Manager. And it focuses on situational leadership for the leader, but it also focuses on self-leadership. So how do you self-diagnose your own self at the development level of a task or goal? So you can better have conversations with your own direct manager, and it really helps simplify the conversation. So that's specific to situational leadership. In terms of the overall talent management landscape, because it is continuously evolving, I follow High Ground. It's a technology company that focuses on different talent management technology, blogs, resources, webinars, things like that. I absolutely love them. They are cutting edge. I follow them on Twitter. I also go onto their website. And then I also read up and follow Brandon Hall Group. And they are also a wonderful website that is even larger than talent management. It hits the entire HR suite and also data analytics, just to kind of keep everyone on the cutting edge of new webinars, resources, companies that are doing things differently, what's working, what's not. Those are my favorites.
I love it. I'm going to definitely check out High Ground, because that sounds like an awesome resource.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that share.
Yeah, certainly.
So Thank you, Beth, for being on the podcast. But before you leave, it is the Career Tipper podcast signature ending. Please share your favorite quote and affirmation that keeps you creating career tipping moments.
So the quote I have is from Ellen DeGeneres, and I absolutely love it. And it says, find out who you are and be that person. That's what your soul was put on earth to be. Find that truth, live that truth, and everything else will come. Okay. And so that resonates with me because, I think in an ever-changing environment, we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses, and we have to remain our authentic self and find out what we love to do, what we are passionate about, what we care about, and how can we live that on a daily basis in some way, shape, or form. And so that's why it resonates with me. I've always said, that I said earlier on, I enjoy kind of studying the workplace, people, and why they think the way they do, how they work. And this, I think, fits it, is, be true to who you are, be that person, live that truth, and I think everything else will come.
It will come, because then you realize that there's no better option than being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And I like Ellen DeGeneres, too. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you. Oh, before you leave, please share how the listeners can get in touch with you.
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Beth Hanson, Hanson, and it's linkedin.com/in/Hanson Beth. And you can also follow me on Twitter. It's BAHANS0505.
And you can find me, Michelle Beatty, at CareerTipper.com and on Instagram at CareerTipper, on Twitter at CareerTipper1. And listeners, thanks so much for joining us today. And you can also follow the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. Please follow and leave a review. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Career Tipper Podcast. We're grateful for our listeners and guests. For more resources about how to evolve to your professional best, share your comments and feedback about this episode and your suggestions for future guests, visit CareerTipper.com. Until next time, be confidently you.